leading is lonely.
Welcome to Behind Their Success. This podcast is for people who are feeling stuck on their entrepreneur journey or in their careers. It's for people who want to scale and grow their businesses, learn about the power of mindset, or they just know there's more out there and they want to start making changes. I'm Peyton Squires, the host of the podcast. I was never cut out to be an employee, and when I was an employee, I was bored out of my mind. So I made a plan. I studied and passed the CPA exam in 8 months while working, all with the end goal in mind of quitting my job and starting my own business. I did that in 2014, and it's been an amazing wild ride since. So now let's hear from other entrepreneurs and what mindsets, and probably more important, what actions they have taken that have created and led to their success.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Behind Their Success podcast. I'm Peyton Squires, the host, and today we have on Courtney DeRondi. Courtney is the CEO of Forge Financial and Management Consulting and the creator of the Simple Scale Up system. With over 20 years as a CPA and 15 years in business leadership, Courtney specializes in guiding small businesses from startup to scale up. She's an expert in business intelligence, leadership, and corporate finance. Courtney, good morning. Welcome on.
Hey, Peyton. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure to have another CPA.
Yes, and people are going to think we're so boring, but we're not. We're
guys, didn't even know you for the last 10 minutes offline. When we started this, I think you're kind of like me, maybe a little different than your average CPA from like an outgoing.
Yes, I get that a lot, for sure. So I am a CPA, as you mentioned, and so I have a degree in accounting, and I started out in public accounting. But what has always been part of my DNA is this belief that things could be better, that they don't have to stay this way. And so, if you look at my Clifton strengths, I'm a top strength is maximizer. I'm an Enneagram 1 improver. And so I definitely brought that to my public accounting firm. And so when things were stressful or compressed or, hard, I was always looking for a better way to do it. When we saw people leaving our profession because the hours are too long and the workload's too compressed, I said, well, how can we find a way to spread the workload? Anyway, in my career, I started out very traditionally doing tax and audit, was able to be part of building an audit practice in our firm, transitioned that to another leader and started an outsourced accounting practice, became an owner in the firm, immediately got elected to our executive team. So I got to have a front row seat at firm leadership. And also, the things that come into play with being an owner in a firm, and then eventually became the managing partner. And then most recently launched a group business coaching and leadership development program using that proprietary framework that you mentioned in my intro, the Simple Scale Up system, to help other leaders and business owners to grow and scale their organizations through what I've learned. So it's just a reverse engineering of all the things that I learned the hard way into the lessons learned. Because, they say it's you learn so much more from your mistakes, but you can also learn from mistakes other people made without making them yourself. And so that was really the goal, was creating a framework that would allow other people to get to scale faster and avoid some of those challenges that I learned firsthand by creating that system to guide our coaching program.
Yeah. So tell me, like, your typical client, or kind of what's their problems and how are you?
Yeah. So we serve a lot of established small businesses. So generally, if they are a service-based business, they're over $1 million. Maybe they're between 1 and 10 or 15 million. If they're a product-based business, they might be, 20, 30, 50 million. But they're all in this stage of where they've made it past startup and they're trying to grow to the next level, but they're still thinking and acting like they did in startup because that worked. That got them where they're at, and they're trying to get to the next level. And so generally they've added employees. They may have a small leadership team. They're starting to realize that they're no longer only the founder. They're also needing to become a leader, and they have to be able to take their vision their strategy, their skills, their gifts, their talents, and leverage them among a group of other people to help support them in that
Yeah.
journey. And that's just a whole different thing. And it can be really challenging. And so that's who we help both in our group coaching program, which is called Scaling Leader. And then for our clients, where we're providing outsourced accounting with tax services, or with or without tax services. Some of them have other preparers. And then also we have an audit practice. Generally, they are businesses who are established, but they're trying to get to that next level, and they start to realize
Mhm.
they need better visibility in their financials. They need to start predicting
Mhm.
where they're going. They need to start leading. They need to start making sure they're being productive with their resources. They need to understand all these people that are around them. That's really who we're working with, and what problems they're
Yeah.
facing.
Yeah, very similar client base that I take my kind of tax practice. It's people that they figured out the first couple levels of the game a little bit, right? And now they're running into a whole host of new problems that
Hmm.
they've never faced, right? And like you said, kind of like a guide, like you or me, to kind of that have seen those patterns before and help them navigate all that stuff. And it is true. It is really interesting that, like, and this is even something I'm seeing in my own business, as I've kind of had my business for a little over a decade. Most of the time in there, I was really just kind of running a solo practice and I kind of viewed my business as my job to make money, to go buy investments and different things with it. Wasn't until the last probably, 4 or 5 years where I'm like, okay, I'm going to grow a firm, right? Like I'm actually going to build a firm. And now I'm going through some of those points right now where it's like, okay, probably the most important thing I do right now is just like leadership, and just leader of my team, and leading by example, and being the most disciplined person, just because
Hmm.
that leads.
Yeah, it is. You're so right. I think leadership, what I came to realize, is really foundational if you're trying to grow to the next level. And some founders, some really entrepreneurial founders, aren't cut out for that. And they are the serial entrepreneurs who get it to a certain phase
Mhm.
and then
And
transition
yeah,
it to an
right.
operator or somebody else, and they get out and go start something new. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But not everybody wants to do that, but they can get to that point where it starts to get messy and hard, and they feel like, I either need to double down on what I've been doing and keep trying these same principles and tactics I've been doing that got me here, or maybe I should just quit and give up. And there's really a
Mhm.
third way, and that's to recognize that this is just a whole different stage, and there are different things you
Mhm.
focus on and different things you have to learn and do. Doesn't mean that you did anything wrong to get here. It just means you've got to change to a different approach. And so for those who are wanting to do, like you said, make this a firm, make this a company, stay in this, grow it, lead it, I think the very first thing you have to recognize is you are the leader. And that's actually the first
Mhm.
principle in the Simple Scale Up system that I created. And with that comes kind of the responsibility and the accountability side of it. Like, ah, man, if something went wrong, it's on you. But it's
Mhm.
also a freedom to know that because you are the leader, you can change things. You can do what needs to be done to make it better or to change it. So though there is a weight of responsibility, there's also a freedom in knowing that you're in the seat to make things different.
Yeah, everything begins and ends with you. And yeah, yeah. And it's, as the leader, the leader of the business, you get to that business level, especially when you get through past the startup, and kind of maybe into that 7-figure range. It really is. The business is 100% rise and fall with the leadership, right? The leadership, the team, and the skills and the stuff in that stage. I mean, like everything in the new stage is just a skill set, right? A new skill set for everybody to learn. The leader needs to learn to be able to just better leverage his time and grow the business. Because yeah, you spent the last 10 years or whatever that time frame is before, working on all kinds of tasks that needed to be done at the time, at the time then. But now it's like, okay, that served you in the past, but absolutely that is not what
Mhm.
you should be
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And here's the other thing. If you've done this before and you go do it somewhere else, you always have to be reminded of these same lessons again. I've seen that for myself.
doing.
I mentioned I was part of building this audit practice and then this virtual CFO practice. Now I'm building this coaching practice. And these same things keep coming up. And I think, oh, yes, I know what to do here. But it's not necessarily your
Mhm.
natural instinct to make that switch.
Mhm.
And in our group coaching program and Scaling Leader, we have clients who've done the same. They've built something before and now they're building something new. And they're recognizing, oh yeah, I do have to switch the way I'm thinking, do this different.
Yeah. Yeah. Forgot about the
For sure.
stage, right?
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
just goes to show how typical this is. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means you have to recognize and start to do things differently.
Yeah. And it's super helpful to have a guide or an outside party that's like, hey, remember, see this? You're not seeing this right now. You remember this? Yeah. And
Yes,
just
for
kind of
sure. Yeah, we talk about that in our group coaching program. We have this curriculum, we have this framework we built called the Simple Scale Up System. And I actually have a copy of it here this is like a quick overview. People can read this little overview or download the PDF, and that will be like a map to you. But sometimes it's helpful to have a guide, like you mentioned, someone who has been there before to help point you along the way, to help guide you along the way, to encourage you, to show you those paths. And that's really, I think, the difference between, reading the book and trying to do it your own and being part of a coaching program or having some kind of a coach or a mentor. We need people who have done these things before to help us. And I think it helps to build our intelligence. It helps to build our insights. A lot of what happens in startup, you're relying on your gut. You're relying on your instincts. And that can be very helpful, but when you try to grow to the next level, your instincts are based on your emotions and your experiences. So it's super helpful if I'm trying to get around my own neighborhood, I can trust my gut, right? If I'm trying to get to, where you're at, a few hours south of me and I've only been there once, I probably need a map or a guide because I'm not going to be able to trust my gut. And so that map or that guide helps to build our instincts for the future. So we're actually adding intelligence to ourselves. We're boosting our instincts as we add insights and information from guides and maps along the way.
Yeah. And what I would tell you, a map's great. Well, that guide's going to take you down that
A whole lot faster.
right? Like if you're
Actually, I post pretty frequently on LinkedIn, and one of the things I shared within the last week or two was a question that I got from a prospective coaching client about a year ago. And he said, Courtney, if you wouldn't have had your coach, do you think you'd be where you are today? Do you think you would have accomplished what you've accomplished? And I kind of thought for a second and I said, you know what? I'm a pretty confident person. So I think I would eventually get there, but it would take me so much longer. I would not be where I am right now without the coaching program that I was in, without the executive coach that I have. You're exactly right, Peyton. That's what gets you there faster because you can so much more quickly add those insights and intelligence to your instincts and get better along the way.
There's a quote or something out there. It's like a fool never learns. A smart person learns from their own experiences, but a wise person learns from other people's experiences, right? The beauty of the wise person learning from other people's experiences, one, way faster, right? You might be 5 years down the road on something and save me 5 years, but like, hey, don't go here, go here. And you just cut 5 years off my path. And I had another point there, and now he's just lost it. It was a great point, but I lost it in my point there. But anyway, having the guide, having the map, and leaning on, and personally in my world, that's something that's really accelerated my growth, especially in the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 years. Is being part of networking groups, being part of a mastermind group that's full of people that are business owners that honestly, some of them are intimidating because they are 20 steps down the road from me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't belong in this group or whatnot, right? Like, but it's being uncomfortable and being in those groups and being the quote unquote, maybe dumbest person in the room is probably the best room for you to be in because you can just sit there and soak everything up and probably skip a bunch of levels because you're learning from all this.
Absolutely. Yeah. They say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I've just had such great opportunities over the years to be part of different group coaching programs, one-on-one coaching, masterminds, and having people who have been there before, people who are farther down the path than you can. It just has consistently expanded my thinking about what's possible and accelerated my ability to get there more quickly. And I was just talking to a couple people last week about the difference between a group coaching program and a mastermind, because right now I'm in a couple of masterminds and they are tremendous. But I've been in group coaching before, and then I facilitate Scaling Leader, which is a group coaching program. And here's how I would look at the difference, depending on the group coaching program, at least comparing Scaling Leader, what I have to help people to grow and scale to the next level versus a mastermind, is that in our group coaching program, we have a curriculum and a framework that you are essentially learning and implementing within your business, so that you and your other leaders and your team are all operating on the same system. You're using the same agendas, the same check-in forms, the same working style profile tools. All these things are equipping you with not only principles and practices, but real, like, fill in the blank tools that you can use. So for people who need that kind of system and structure, something like Scaling Leader is providing that. Doing it in a group setting gives you also access to other leaders who are in a similar place, or maybe they're a little farther ahead of you, some behind you, mostly to build connection and relationship with. You can learn from each other, absolutely, but we don't do mastermind type settings. We do connection dinners, but we're mostly concerned about people building relationships, because leading is lonely, and having other people who get it, that you can be in a relationship, is really valuable. Now compare that to the couple of masterminds that I'm in right now. There's not really a curriculum. It is mostly experience shares from people who are at or beyond my level. Because at this point, I don't need a new framework or a new system. I've already got my own and I'm teaching it. I don't want to, cloud my mind with other things, but I'll take little pieces from things that I learn from others in my group and maybe make something better because I'm a maximizer, or expand my thinking or shift my mindset. And so, whatever it is that you need, if you need a one-on-one coach, if you need a mastermind, if you need a curriculum and a structure, being really intentional about what it is that's most helpful for you in this season and finding it is going to get you there so much faster.
Kind of shift gears a little bit, and I'll kind of talk about you a little bit on here. What would you say is your best skill?
I think my number one skill is the ability to maximize or improve something that's already good to make it better. Just constantly believing that better is possible. We can learn, we can grow, we can change. We don't just have to accept the status quo. And I would say closely related to that is the ability to galvanize or encourage others around those same ideas to do it together. Those are probably the superpower that I have that has led to my fulfillment and to my collective success with my team and with clients.
Just curious, have you ever taken the culture index?
I have not taken culture index. I've taken so many. I've taken predictive index and Colby.
Well, yeah, predictive culture.
Okay.
They're
Yes,
almost
predictive index. I think I was in like towards the middle. I think that they called me a chameleon. So does that like I can kind of shift to what is needed?
My guess is, yeah, you certainly you're certainly not the typical CPA profile, right? I'm not either, by the way. As you can probably tell, you're certainly high social, right? And the galvanizing piece, you're kind of like that's very similar to my profile, like in the culture index, which I'm called a coordinator, which is it's a social profile. You have high detail, you're social, you're also low patience, like me. Like I'm low patience, I want to get things done. But the leading trait is the sociability with the details. My guess is you're something like that. But it's the ability in the coordinator profile, like is very much a galvanizer, a team, like the glue of the place, right? Like around here, like I love just hanging out and talking to the people and leading. And it's not even about necessarily business, but like just creating a fun kind of environment that we could all be relaxed and,
Yeah.
relaxed.
Yeah. A big part of our culture at Forge is succeeding personally and professionally, and putting people first and recognizing that we're all human beings with all kinds of things going on in our lives outside of what we do in our work. And so that kind of relational, social aspect of it, it just helps me to help people see, and for me to see in them that there's more going on here than just what we do during the week,
Yeah.
and it's all interconnected. So if someone is struggling with something financially or relationally or physically, it's going to impact the way they show up in the work they do with our team and with our clients. And likewise, if something's causing them challenges at work, it's going to affect the way that they interact with their family. And so a big part of our culture is helping people, equipping people with tools and training and coaching around what we call human intelligence, and just being able to understand the interconnectivity and the value of rest and rejuvenation, fulfillment, using your strengths and gifts. We actually do a whole session in our Scaling Leader program, and we do it within our team where everyone takes 3 different assessments. So we do Clifton Strengths for the kind of the thinking side of the brain, the cognitive side. We do Enneagram through Integrative 9 for the feeling or motivation side. And then we do Colby for the cognitive or instinctive action side of the brain. So we all think, feel, take action 3 different ways. So we take all 3 assessments, people deep dive on their assessments, summarize them in a working style profile. It deepens each person's self-awareness. How am I wired? And then the next step is to say, what should I even be doing based on the way I'm wired and gifted? What are the types of things that I should be doing? Because if you use your instinctive gifts and strengths, you'll be way more effective and way more fulfilled. We just have to account for the fact that we're not going to be quite as effective at it, and it's going to drain our energy. And
Yeah,
so
it's
the
going to take
more
money.
we can increase our self-awareness, the more we can work within and leverage play to those strengths. And when we use that within a team, so when I use that within my team or my Scaling Leader clients use that within their teams, they start to boost the overall engagement and effectiveness because everyone's doing what they should be doing, or at least most of the things they're doing align. Those types of assessments and leveraging the information, I just have found so much value in for my own self-awareness and for really optimizing the people within your teams.
That's been huge, I would say, in the last 2 years for me. I have a small team on my tax side, but like just having me and everybody on our team understand each other
Mhm.
from like that viewpoint of like, this is what Jake's good at. This is what Spaden's. This is what's Alex good at.
And I think kind of what prompted me to think about that, you were saying, Peyton, a minute ago, you're different than typical CPAs. I'm different than typical CPAs, which means I'm different than a lot of the team that I lead. And so having that intelligence, that insight from those profiles is really valuable for my leadership, because if I lead them the way I would lead me, it's not going to land because they don't think, feel, and take action exactly the way I do.
I'm also going to guess that some of your constant improvement you're looking for over the years has probably rubbed some of those traditionals people
Right. Yeah. It's like,
the
oh,
wrong
why
way,
can't
I
we
guess.
just, why do we have to change this? Why do we have to make, like, this is just the way it
It
is.
works.
Right.
We're messing with
Sure.
it.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, that's a great point too. I'm an innovator. I like change, risk, and uncertainty. 90% of my team is low,
90% of
for
the
sure,
accountants.
low quick start. That means they don't like risk, change, and uncertainty. Their gift is that they try to minimize chaos. They try to preserve what's working. Those are gifts until you need to innovate. My innovation is a gift until we need to slow down and keep what's working. They're all gifts. You just have to understand where you're naturally bent towards. But because of that significant difference between myself and most of my team, I am incredibly mindful of the initiatives that we take on and the language I use around it. I'll almost always position something as a version 1.0 or a minimum viable product or a beta, because it sets the stage that this is going to keep changing and iterating. This is not the perfected end all be all. And that alone gives them more certainty. It reduces the uncertainty that they have about what's coming because they start to expect there will be a version 2.0, maybe a 3.0. And so just things like that, that human intelligence aspect have been so valuable for me in learning to lead and then, building that into our system when we're coaching other leaders in Scaling Leader, because that adding that intelligence, those insights to your instincts can make a huge difference.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's great stuff. So Courtney, on your journey of doing all these businesses, what would you say is the best decision?
The best decision I've ever made. Oh goodness. I think probably a pivotal moment for me was in 2020 adding an executive coach, a one-on-one coach. So I was co-managing partner at the time, getting ready to become the managing partner of our firm, the firm that we split off from. And I was in group coaching. I'd done, some leadership development, but I invested in a one-on-one executive coach. And I've learned more from that coach. His name's Kevin Jennings. I've learned more from Kevin. I've expanded my thinking more. I've changed and expanded what I believe is possible more in the last 4 years than I ever could have without him. And that shift from being a peer to being the leader, so being a partner in my firm to being the managing partner or the CEO now, I wasn't prepared for how lonely that would be. But I felt like all of a sudden nobody tells me anything anymore.
Yeah.
And so having an executive coach, someone who I could talk to and really share my challenges, who could be my cheerleader, because I couldn't really get that from my other partners anymore because I was now their leader. I would say that's probably one of the greatest decisions I've made, is that investment in coaching. And there's a belief there, not just in a belief in the coach, but there's a belief in yourself that you're going to be coachable, that you're going to take what you're learning and get value from it. That was definitely a pivotal moment for me.
Similar for me, like it's just getting around people that make you better, right? Pull your stats up, whether it's a one-on-one coach or like you said, mastermind type stuff. I got 40 guys, I think, in a mastermind group that are all, I would say watching me, but like kind of are, right? We all keep tabs on each other. And like, for me, I like that accountability or whatever, right? Like I want to show these guys that I am who I say I am. And the accountability is for me as a social person is really important because like I'll do stuff. That's the interesting thing about my personality is like, I don't even do stuff for me. Like really per se, it's more that I don't want to let other people down is really like, honestly, the underlying motivation, right? It's being around people that hold me accountable and say, hey, Peyton, you say your standards are here. Let's see it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think understanding those things about yourself and then taking action to develop them, increase that awareness is definitely an accelerator of leadership ability.
So on the flip side of that, Courtney, what is one big mistake you've made?
Yeah. So a big mistake, it actually happened around the same time in 2020, as I was becoming the next managing partner. One of the strategies that my executive team and I had decided on was splitting the firm. So we had just grown to where we had two very different business models. We had this high volume tax practice, mostly, B2C, high volume, small fee per client, mostly serving people in geographic locations within a 20-mile radius. Yeah. And then we had the audit practice and the virtual CFO practice that were serving business clients, so B2B, all over the country, digital. Most people don't even know or care where we are, and a higher dollar and lower volume, two very different models. And so the strategy was, let's split, because we've got within our ownership group, we've got people who work in each area, and we're just wasting a lot of energy trying to find the common brand, vision, even processes. And so I thought this was a great idea. My executive team thought it was a great idea. We pitched it to the partner group and it fell flat because I was approaching it as a business strategy and I gave zero thought to the way that my fellow partners would feel about this. And what they felt was like we were abandoning them, like we were disregarding them, we didn't even care. And I broke so much trust. We didn't even get to a vote. I broke so much trust, and there was so much disappointment, and just because of the way I handled that. And so over the next 2 years, or really 18 months, I rebuilt trust with those partners. First, I got coached by my coach on not quitting because I'm a loser. Then I rebuilt trust with those partners and ended up building and presenting two different strategies to go forward together or to go forward separately. And I set aside my kind of hope in one outcome or the other. I got comfortable with I can't control the outcome. I can control how I show up and how I prepare and who I am as a person and a leader. And it ended up, 18 months later, unanimously approving to split. But what I learned 18 months prior to that, if I wouldn't have learned that lesson, I missed so many things along the way, but it was hard. And I've never wanted to quit more than after that, the fallout from that.
Those and it's like, what do you do about those things? Like, you had the best of intentions, right? Like, and you didn't know that you were stepping or offending someone or whatnot. But like the important thing is that, okay, what role did I play in this? What can I do different? What can I do to make these connections, strengthen these connections that, have gotten hurt in some way or whatnot. But like, that's the only thing that really matters out of that whole story, right? Is like, because you're gonna do something similar in the future, right? It may not be that exact same thing, but you're gonna mess something else up, right? And it's just the ability to humble yourself. Okay, yeah, I messed that up. What can I do? Let's go.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I think it's just that belief that we're either winning or learning. And we're not ever losing unless we don't get the lessons from it. So unless you quit or you skip out on the lesson for sure. And I tell my team that all the time. But when you're the one learning, it can be it can be hard to not give up and to not quit. But I think the more we recognize that that's actually just part of the journey, like we should expect that we're going to mess up and we're going to learn from those mistakes and keep going. The more we expect that versus expecting that everything is just smooth sailing and up and to the right, the easier it becomes to learn from those lessons and recognize, we're in a stage of developing our character, developing our skills, something's being developed in us for what comes next that we have to get through before we're ready for that next phase.
One last question for you, Courtney. If you could tell yourself one piece of advice going back to the beginning of your career, you can say, hey, Courtney, here's what you need to do.
I think it would be to never stop learning and growing.
Yeah, I love that. As a lifelong learner, as a guy that's always like considered myself a reader and all those things, that I would say that's the number one thing that's led to my success is being curious, right? And reading and listening and learning new things. Curiosity is a superpower. I have one of my executive coach friends is his whole thing. It's curiosity, superpower. One question can change the course of your life. One great question, right? And it's just being curious, right? And continue to learn. This has been an awesome conversation, Courtney. What is the best way people connect with you? You obviously got a lot of cool resources for businesses growing and stuff. What's the best way
Yeah.
to
So for me, directly, I am very active on LinkedIn. So I'd love to connect or do a follow on LinkedIn at Courtney DeRondi. And then for Forge, whether you're looking for outsourced accounting, auditing, group business coaching, one-on-one coaching, any of that kind of coaching and training, you can find us at forgeahead.com. And on our website, on forgeahead.com, you will see a free assessment called a Business Intelligence Grader. I encourage you to check that out. You'll be able to self-assess where you're at on your journey towards scaling in finance, leadership, productivity, and human intelligence. So a lot of the things that we just kind of naturally talked about today, those are real things that have to be addressed and improved upon in your journey towards scaling. So if you want to see where you're at, get some specific tips as to what you should focus on depending on your assessment, you can check that out. It's called our Business Intelligence Grader. You can find it at forgeahead.com.
Awesome, guys. Yeah, so check out Courtney at forgeahead.com. Courtney, I appreciate you coming on. This has been a great conversation. We have a lot in common, similar fields.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Peyton.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people, as we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to PeytonSquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.